Okay, continuing on where we left off, we were just talking about my display to talk about how much variation. And so for job shops and shops where they create their own programs, they do not mix program types. Either part path or cutter center lines are used exclusively, but the big issue arises in a job shop where the outside customers provides jobs with programs. Then the setup person must know which type and enter tools offset accordingly. At best, bad parts will be made missing the setup detail, but big crashes can occur if you get this step wrong. So just a nice caveat for us to be mindful of. So for the lathe tool selection, lathe cutter selection has another aspect in that the shank shape and the direction it is pointing must be considered too. Otherwise, tool interference can occur during program runs. When choosing lathe tools of the shape and or the way it is oriented relative to the machine axis must also be part of the compensation. The control will not know how to approach and back away from the geometry if this data is not included in the offset memory. Tool shape and direction is selected in one of two ways depending on the control, from a library or from an approach vector. So here we have some illustrations of thinking about adding tool shape and orientation. So first we have the choosing cutter shape. So you can be thinking about this, what it is that you actually are needing, and the cutter orientation pointing to specify what direction. So for loading tools, we'll start with lathes since it is a simpler issue. For CNC lathes with multiple cutters, tool 1 as listed in the setup document must be placed in slot 1 in the turret. Tool 2 goes into slot 2 and so on. So here we can see all these various tools that can be loaded and programmed for use. For loading mill tools, some mills with tool storage drums or turrets require the same order. Tool 1 must go into hole 1, or they are set that way for simplicity. Tool 1 is always in hole 1. Modern machining centers use random tool storage. Random storage is more efficient. During tool changing, the ongoing tool can go into the incoming tool's empty hole in the drum. There are two ways to load random tools. So the first method, after loading this tool into hole 8 in the storage drum, the operator must then enter the tool storage page with a tool number from the setup document in hole 8. So let's think about this for replay, that the whole drum number is not the tool number. Tool memory must know what tool number is in hole 8 initially. After the setup during a program run, it will use it, then replace it with the closest hole, not necessarily hole 8. The control remember and track where it's in at the drum. It's kind of like random memory, random access memory, if you're familiar with that in terms of a computer analogy. The second method, the MDI command, manually load tool into the spindle. And so for an example, to load tool 06 into the machine, write the following MDI command, T06 M6:. After touching cycle start, the drum will roll to the current tool 06 change position. Then the charger will place that tool in the spindle. Now manually remove it from the spindle and replace it with the new tool 06 listed for this setup. This method is more foolproof. It doesn't matter what hole the tools are in, the control will know. So in industry, most use method 1 due to the improved turnaround time for a setup, but one must be certain to write the tool numbers and the correct holes in the tool storage page. Notes help to get it right if there are several tools. Plus, industrial shops often have a standard preload of a commonly used tools ready to go. Programmers try to call upon the standards, thus there are no turnaround time other than replacing dull tools. And in terms of a caution, when manually unlatching a cutter from the spindle, you must prevent it from dropping by holding it with your hand. Edges can cut, especially if it's heavy. Gloves are okay here, so keep that in mind for protecting yourself. Okay, we'll stop the video here, and then we'll come back to this section